think a great topic of discussion, and it's funny, and I'll tell you a few funny stories too. A great topic of discussion is position on the bike because we both know there's this, maybe I don't understand it, to be honest with you. And I think there's just a misunderstanding for people that push this, but this idea of an anterior pelvic tilt and flat back on the bike, there's a lot of that out there. And it creates a lot of confusion. And I think at times, as that information is passed down, maybe it's misunderstood from those sources, like well-intentioned misunderstanding.
Hmm.
And it gets to the rider, and it's like you see people with all of these interesting philosophies on positioning on the bike, and sometimes those things cause problems. So I think going into the biomechanics, a little bit of pelvic tilt, what that actually means and what it means on the bike and what it means for spine position and collaborating on that is an interesting discussion. We've got it recorded, so we can cut that up.
That's
We
fun. Yeah.
can use it because I think it's an issue out there that I think we could both agree. Rehab in cycling is kind of an underserved landscape, anyways, in terms of
It's
like
an understatement.
uniformity and like doing things really, really well. And we both endeavor to do that.
Yeah, there's
I
no
think
standard practice or like standards of care or like there's nothing. It's like the Wild West. And unfortunately, the authorities are those who are the loudest, but it's not exactly the best source. But then like there's an emerging field of PTs and healthcare practitioners like you and I who have specialization and knowledge in this field, not because of our formal education or training, but because of our collective passion and study to figure this out. And what I'd argue is across like thousands of cases by this point. Like at a certain point, it's like, no, I have opinion on this because you've seen a couple thousand of them and you've seen a range of these things. And I think it's a very important time to start um in a sense like flexing a bit of that authority. Like I don't bat an eye when I tell people like what I say is what you should aspire to be like, not because I'm an arrogant fool, because I've put in the numbers and times and reps for nearly a decade with thousands of riders around the world. And so has Robbie, and so has other PTs that come before us, like Kersan and these people that I learned from, that now we're finally getting to a critical point where it's like, no, your opinion's wrong. Here's what's correct. And it's correct because when you have problems, because this isn't correct, and you come to those experts you need help with, like Robbie and myself, when we tell you the correct answer and it works, that's the proof. And so, because we're not coming from a place of like, I don't put studies in people's faces, I don't have to flex, I just tell them the power of the word of obvious. Like, have you tried it? Then don't talk to me. But if you talk to those who have tried it and succeeded in it, they'll tell you that what we preach and teach and deliver is correct. So I think it's worth clarifying a lot of these things because I think it's toxic to writers when those who have the most influence when it comes to selling and teaching, coaching across the internet with real like big money sponsors and things that are representing brands at a high level, when those figures are so confidently misinformed about basic biomechanical principles for spinal health and treatment, and they're conflicting. It's a hard place to be at. So I think there's a lot of value in presenting things in a logical way that teach people to understand truth rather than just saying, I have this many followers and I'm on this color bike. Believe me. It's like that's very misleading. So I'm glad we're doing this because it's important.
Yeah, 100%. Because I think it's the blend of however someone comes to understanding the blend of the mechanics, plus the experience of understanding how that actually plays out on the bike as well.
Yeah.
Because obviously, I deal with back pain almost exclusively, I would say, and I characterize back pain as a force distribution problem.
Yeah, I
And
want to hear this. I legitimately want to hear what you speak on this because I need to learn. Like, teach me when you talk about back pain.
I got you. And
Okay.
we're gonna actually start with one of your terms.
Okay.
But when we look at back pain as a force distribution problem, it happens in life. And in life, it's a little bit different than on the bike because on a bicycle is a very specific position. I mean, the first time someone said this in these words, it was you, it was like God made body, man made machine, right? So
Yeah.
there's very specific things about riding a bicycle that are unique to exactly that. And don't cross over directly to other areas of life. And so where I
Hmm.
think the topic of discussion goes here, it goes to this idea of like what is pelvic tilt and healthy spine mechanics, and your term is the glute scoop. And I've been on some Instagram posts and seen some back and forth. Think I even jumped into one a little bit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
But I think where the confusion comes in is actually what is pelvic tilt and what is the consequence on the spine, the hips, and the position riding a bike. So I'll make a few declarative statements of how I see the world based
I
on
love it.
education, experience. I mean, largely melding that together, the experience is really important there as well.
Yeah, man.
We're sitting on the bike seat,
Okay.
and if we simplify it, we say, okay, we could be in a relatively more anterior or tilted position at the pelvis.
Got it. Like,
Relative is important there, right?
okay,
Because
so
if we look at
relative. Yeah.
spine neutral, cool, spine neutral here. If I square up my pelvis, I'm here.
Yeah,
Anterior
yeah.
tilt, this is actual anterior tilt anatomically. This is actual posterior tilt anatomically. When
Yeah.
we sit on a bike seat, we are going to be in actual posterior tilt. So to
Yep.
actually go to anterior tilt on a bike seat would be potentially possible on a cruiser, a really upright setup. But for our folks, it doesn't really happen. You
Nah, there's what's called saddle to bar drop.
could do it on a cruiser, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So
I like that. Anatomical position is really important when describing this because any healthcare practitioner who's been to day one of anatomy class in high school learns that all descriptions are from the anatomical position of standing up straight, arms out here. So I agree. The discussions I've gotten into with those who are misinformed about anatomical terminology and jargon in the world of rehab. It's a big category. Is we define everything. So your definition of an anterior pelvic tilt would be, well, what bony landmarks are in relation to others? So your ASIS, your PI. We go into these definitions when you do other biomechanical studies. But I agree that when we look at the human body's position on a bicycle using the anatomical position terminology relative to the bike position, it starts to create an area of confusion. So I'm glad you said the term relative because that's
yes.
super important that each rider understands their own relative position because they can't even understand or identify it, they can't fix it. So I like that.
Right. And we know that there's going to be times on any given ride or any intensity of ride that you're going to sit in different spots on the saddle. That's life. Should be.
Exactly.
I can't, you can't ride 100% of the time in a position you would race a criterium in, or obviously,
God, no,
well,
I
uh,
can't.
they're not going to work. Ups and downs matter, and intensity
Yeah.
matters, right? So when I look at this advice, if we take the key issue of a anterior tilt and a flat back, I can make declarative statements of truth from a biomechanics standpoint on that.
Okay.
When we tilt forward and flatten out the back on a bike in a position where our hips are not going to be straight at any point and go into a fair amount of flexion, a
Mhm.
couple of things happen, period. It's fact. We close down the hips, especially in terms of internal rotation.
Yes.
On a bike seat, we will put more pressure onto the front of the perineum,
Hmm.
and forward tilt of the spine will indeed flatten out the back. So a relative extension, but we're
Yes.
still in flexion. Now, what happens when we do that, because of that, the combo of things there,
Mhm.
closing down the hips is a big part of that, but flattening the back is as well. When we do that, our hips, and keep in mind, you know this, but for anyone
Yeah.
where we put this out, the hips connect to the pelvis. I can't talk about hip rotation without talking about the pelvis. But with a relatively forward tilted pelvis and a flattened back, my on a bike pedaling, our hips don't absorb force well and they drive more stress up to the back. When that back is
Mm.
straightened, that back will move more side to side, and that's not a positive thing for stress on the
You
back.
mean like to define like more lateral, almost like a hip raise lateral movement was what you mean?
Yeah,
Happens more. Okay.
you'll see more hip hike, you'll see more rocking, to use a term that's
Yeah, the sign you'll see is more like a hip hike rocking because the spine is flat. It's not dissipating that force. It's just rocking it. Is that what you're saying?
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Yes.
And where this comes in as a misunderstanding, I believe, is that we look at um, somewhat possibly true statements, but it can be misguided as well, that we should have a neutral spine to be strong. And I think the easiest way to help people to understand is a deadlift, right?
Mhm.
You can deadlift with a rounded back. If you're not used to that position, that load, it can cause injury. Now,
Correct.
at deadlift, the the front the front end, if you will, is
Yeah.
absolutely open. But I would actually say neither point is fixed with a deadlift because of how our spine is moving through space. We're going to come to an upright, we're going to
Yeah.
drop back down. That would be a bridge that's like hung by two strings,
Yeah.
not very stable.
No, no, no.
So we equate rounding of the back as dangerous to the spine with things like a deadlift.
Yeah.
Fine. We don't actually even need to debate the ins and outs of that. I'm willing to say, like, okay, there's merit to that. Now, when we're on a bicycle, we're fixed on the bicycle seat,
Mhm.
anchored, I would say, for the most part. There's some flex there, but we're anchored.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
We are
Agreed.
also fixed at our hands, and so hands up through shoulders creates a stable position on the other side of the bridge, if you will.
Yes.
When we look at a bridge which has two fixed points, an arch is a very strong structure,
Look at the Colosseum, the Pantheon,
or literally anything. When we
the
have
Volkswagen Bug.
the
Yes.
arch is a strong structure. So, as long as the rider has the mechanics to be able to sustain the spine position that they're going into with a posterior tilt and rounded back, that rounded back is a strong, stable structure on the bike, and it is not bad for spine health. Now, if there's
Hmm.
other imbalances or restrictions, sure, anything can cause problems. But the
Yeah.
position in someone who has enough mobility and strength, just to simplify it, when we can talk
Yeah.
control and stability, but mobility and strength, if you've got the right amount of both of those ingredients to get into that position, that rounded position of the back is a good thing.
100%. It's actually how you're supposed to ride.
I will submit into evidence, not that we always copy pros.
This is fun.
A Google search of Remco Evenepoel or Tadej Pogacar, you will see they are always in a posterior tilt with a rounded back. Not a slouch. They are
Mm-mm.
forward. Their
Hmm.
mass is obviously shifted forward. That is part of aerodynamics as well,
Yes.
but they're always in that position. Now, we're not trying to emulate them per se, but if we say, okay, that's a dangerous, is a bad position for the back.
Yeah.
Those guys ride a whole lot and they put down ungodly amounts of power. I would submit to you that's pretty good evidence that it's actually a very efficient position. And
Yeah.
aside from Remco crashing into postal van doors in Belgium, they don't really get injured that often. In fact, Pogacar almost never gets injured. I mean, maybe they
Yeah.
guard that, but he doesn't have major problems with it.
Agreed.
So when people are saying anterior tilt with a flat back, they're taking an off the bike piece of advice about spine health. They're trying to apply it to a totally different scenario. Forward, where we have some, we'll call it hip hinge,
Mhm.
so that we can get in an arrow position, does not mean we have a relative anterior tilt and a flattened spine.
No.
In fact, what we should strive for is the mechanics so that we can do that with a strong, rounded spine
Mhm.
and good hip mobility. But posterior tilt of the pelvis in and of itself opens up hip internal rotation range.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Cyclists, not everybody, but a lot of cyclists with back pain have hip internal rotation restrictions. Oftentimes it's worse one side than the other.
Mhm.
Even just getting into that posterior tilt will help with that.
Oh, yeah,
As
it just opens up their range. Yeah, yeah.
they have the mechanics to do it. And
Yeah.
that's where I can post an Instagram reel and have it be kind of controversial. But when I take the scissors, I cut the string and I say, okay, we're no longer talking generality. We're working with a specific cyclist. Now there's no controversy
Mm.
whatsoever. We fully understand what their mechanics look like. We can help them with the strongest position. That position should be able to change as
That's a
we
good
are
point.
improving their body mechanics.
That's a good point.
And for anyone who wants to just try this, like get down low, let's say elbows parallel to the ground on your hoods,
That's a
and
good position. Yeah.
try to anterior tilt and extend your back. It's gonna it's gonna feel terrible. Your
Yeah,
hips
your back might
immediately
spasm.
Your hips, 100%, and your hips immediately, you'll be able to feel that close down, and you will not clear the top of your pedal stroke as well. Because mechanically,
Yeah.
this is black and white. Mechanically, if you're tilted forward, you're going to decrease your available hip range. Now,
Your video comparison of that was super insightful, by the way. I have not seen a better demonstration of that effect ever. I've never even put something out that was that good. I'm dead serious. I think I reposted it. I was like, watch this. Because you took the time to even show, like, even across what, a 1 mile effort or something, it shows up. I
yeah,
was like, oh, wow, that's really fast. It's not some like 10 seconds over 40K crap.
it
It's
was
like,
almost 3 miles an hour for a minute.
yeah, and I'm like, yeah, that's an easy understanding. Half of it's force distribution, and you lose your pedal mechanics and your efficiency to transfer power. The other half is you just a sail in the wind. And then the third part is like, it just doesn't feel comfortable or safe. Like, even on any modern road bike in the past 15 years, right? Like, I ride a 10-year-old road bike on purpose. Like, no, 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 don't blame the bikes and the technology. It's like, this is a position you have to earn and you have to be able to ride. And I think a lot of this is my opinion, but I think part of the application of this recommendation to sit with a flat back and this anterior pelvis comes from this desire for bike fitters who want to solve the complaint of back pain for their rider who's too lazy to actually build the body that can support the proper technique to do this.
Right.
And I'll stand on that for every time because in order to ride a road bike or any kind of modern bike well, it's a technique you have to develop and build where you can shortcut it by slouching, right? But it's the same thing as like you can slouch on the grocery cart at your store and it's arrow, but you're not strong. Or you can
Right.
stand back here and push with your fingers. But cycling is not deadlifting. It's a super specific activity with a specialized piece of equipment that requires a customized fitting and setup in order to maximize the experience. It's much closer to a drum set. And I'm a professional musician before I came into cycling. So like my guitar and my drum set is mine. It's exactly where I feel it and where I play it from. It doesn't feel like anyone else's. Because of that, I can express myself the most through my instrument. And when I start helping glute dopers understand that if they want to mature from someone who owns a bike and rides it to a cyclist, part of that is the understanding of everything you just said, which is like separate yourself from this idea of like, if you're good at back squatting or deadlifting in the gym, you're instantly going to feel good and ride well on a bike. Nothing could be more false. I'm a terrible back lifter, squatter, deadlift guy. You would laugh. I'm trash at it. I'm a fantastic bike racer. So that's where it's at. And so tell me more about what you think of when it comes from. I really like what you said. I want to learn more. Like, when you look at the general things that we're kind of talking about here, and then how do you apply it specifically? What are some more of those general things that you kind of believe about the spine and the pelvis position that you most often teach like your riders or work on them with? Because then I want to say something about the whole like pelvic tilt glute scoop because that's like what I termed, and it's like a funny thing. Like it's core tuck and glute scoop is what I always say all the time. It's like the number one point of contention people argue with me on. It's like, what are you talking about? So I want to hear what you have to say. I'm going to tell you what we figured out.
And I don't want to steal your thunder here, but when you get that tilt backwards, you're
Yeah.
going to activate the glutes better. You're also going to turn on the core more. You might
Yeah.
feel more tension in your core tilting forward, but you're not creating stability there. Another thing that's going to happen if you're too extended is you will shut down breathing because your diaphragm closes down. So if I'm
Oh,
here,
God, I
and that was
totally
one
forgot
thing
about breathing. Yep.
on that 1 minute test. And
I
for anyone who
forgot
hasn't
that.
seen the post, that 1 minute test was 1 minute, same stretch of road, like 15, 18 minutes apart.
Hmm.
And I sat, I was still getting low, but I
Yeah.
sat in a forward position, back very straight, versus tucked back
Yeah.
and back rounded. A couple of things that happened is I was just jackhammering with the flat back. That's what we talked about in terms of that side to
Hmm.
side rocking force.
Yeah.
Couldn't breathe, and my quads crapped out at like 20 seconds. So I now have created this fucked up muscle imbalance, right?
Mhm.
By not tucking back and basically turning everything on. It's
Yeah.
like, all right, cool. Like I got to make sure the circuitry is good. I flip the light switch, it's on.
Yep.
I don't have good circuitry when I'm in that forward position. And I mean,
No.
the test it very much showed that. So
Yeah.
what I'm looking for at the start, or the where I
Mhm.
start my journey, if you will, is looking at the totality of the hip, pelvis, spine mechanics together. A lot of
Got
that's
it.
pretty basic movements, and I will get pretty deep into testing hip mobility, but
Yeah.
even taking a look at forward bend, backward bend, twisting, and a side glide, so just side
Yeah.
with the
Yeah. So your
get
basic
some
lower back ortho
information
assessment,
about
right?
how your hips, pelvis, and spine interact together.
Oh, I like that.
We take a look then at the isolated hip stuff and then combining hip and pelvis in various positions, we can see, okay, here's not only the pattern of
Mm.
limitation, but where are the asymmetries? In
Oh,
theory,
that's good.
it's not a guarantee. You're more likely to have spine problems if you have asymmetries versus just global restrictions. Now, if you're restricted enough, it's going to cause you problems. You
Got it.
don't need ungodly amounts of hip rotation to ride a bike well, but
Fair.
let me put it this way. You need what you need when it comes to assessing the total movement of hips, pelvis, and spine. That differs by rider. So
Awesome.
when I'm looking at these things, I'm not even comparing to a norm.
Yeah.
I am to an extent, but I'm
Yeah.
looking at the totality of it. And the question that comes into my mind is what does this rider need, to keep it simple, at these three sites to
Got it.
have fluid motion where the force distribution is evened out and the back isn't taking too much of the load?
Got it. And then I'm assuming like what are the outlook outcomes is looking at the quality of the mechanics when they ride again and be like, hey, are you distributing force into the hip hiking? Are you distributing force into the lateral spine?
And
And
people feel this immediately.
yeah,
I will.
that's what I'm saying. Like we all have these complaints. It's just if you try to solve it with like a saddle adjustment, there's no saddle adjustment in the world that's going to better distribute force from the femur bone to the pelvis bone to the spine bone. Like there's just not. And it's like a sad reality that like unfortunately a lot of riders are being sold an equipment solution to something that's a biomechanics problem that first requires you to become aware and understand what you just said. So that's
And
really
I'll
good.
say this for the just get a bike fit people out there. I love you guys. Thank you for the engagement on posts and ads. That said, yeah, a bike fit is, in my opinion, a prereq to being a serious rider. I'd like to see it happen within the last 6 months, certainly within the last year when I'm talking about a painful problem.
Yeah.
That said, fitting the bike to the body does not account for the need to change your mechanics and the fact that your mechanics can change. So
Ah,
you can
there's that
reach the
one.
you can reach the limit of a bike fit where
Yes, you can.
you can't do anything else to the fit. And if you're still having problems, you have to look past the fit. I would submit to you that we are reverse bike fitters. Bike fitter fits the bike to the
Oh,
body.
that's good.
We
Yep.
fit the body to the bike. I don't do bike fits. I know when to trigger a bike fit. Hey, you got to get fit.
Yeah, I don't do bike fits. I work with a bike fitter.
Right. So I would say we are really reverse bike fitters. Both are important. There's a lot more variability in terms of how the body fits the bike versus how you would fit a bike to the body. That's a narrower equation. It's
Yeah.
not one way for everyone. Narrower equation. How your body fits the bike, there's so many variables that can change. The magic is deciding which are important and which don't matter as much. I tell my people this all the time,
Yeah.
not seeking total symmetry. We're not seeking perfection. But what we need to do is
Yeah.
give you the mechanics so that you can distribute force well in a way that you will feel, in a way that we can see, and in a way that we can test against time, which is that you ride the
Mhm.
exact way you want to. And we see those issues come out in the wash because we've changed the key things. You can feel that, we can see it, and it stands the test of not only time, but miles and, I mean, frankly, kilojoules, right? Energy. The
Yeah.
amount.
Kilojoules, baby. Absolutely. How much energy are you gonna put through this thing? Okay. No, I love that. What I think is super interesting, I just learned for me, one, the reminder of the breathing is super huge, but also this idea of like, I've never heard it said reverse bike fitters. Actually, I think that's a really cool thing. So what's funny is within glute doping and in my office, like I'm pretty adamant. I don't actually ever say really the term bike fit. So in my mind, bike fit, because I worked at a bike shop for maybe 4 or 5 years doing mechanics and sales during my racing time. And so I've been embedded in that culture. To me, bike fit is that you're on the correct size frame. That's it. Like, I'm dead serious. Like, bike fit is did you get the size 9 shoe and your size 9 foot? That's the fit. And I do this on purpose with my clients because I want them to kind of limit This is not an insult to bike fitters. I work with one of the best bike fitters around. His name's Rachel Wilson. I'm friends with Andrew Boss, one of the best bike fitters around. And we talk about this all the time because they're competitive riders. And even, the Wilson, they run a competitive team with like national champions at the junior level. And at our team camp, every single rider gets two things. They get a bike fit and they go through the glute doping with me. And they get huge changes out of the bike fit because they're children. And for the first time, we put them on the right size bike. They went from a 58 to a 54, and they're like, wow, the fit's so much better. And I'm like, I think because you went from dad's shoes to your shoes, all of a sudden your mind is so blown. And so there's absolutely a level of problem of pain or something. It doesn't feel good that gets solved by a bike fit. I 100% agree. But let's call that what it is. You're on the right size frame and you at least are remotely close to where your range of motion allows you to pedal this thing well. But if you call that an optimized human to machine setup so you can fully express what you're physically capable of, bro, that's a far cry from that. I much consider it bike setup. Like back in the day, I think you came out, we did some like competitive style riding stuff. Like I had a bike that was like a specialized tarmac, and my setup was like, hey, if we're doing like 100-mile Grand Fondo kind of race day, I would literally adjust my stem height and fix where my saddle would go. Because for that day, I needed endurance miles. I needed a sprint at 95 miles in. When I raced pro crit, a totally different fit. I would bring that saddle down a little bit, push it forward, push it down and back a little bit more, drop the front end low, put the tire pressure down to like 80 because I'm a killer and I dive gaps and I run narrower bars. So for my crit season, my setup for that bike made it so that I was an absolute lethal machine for 5 minute efforts and I was super aero. But beyond 90 minutes, it was like super uncomfortable. But if you want to move into that place where you can start talking and operating like a cyclist that has real opinions about the performance they want to end up with, and then draw it back to your equipment adjustments, that's probably the most important thing is that mindset shift first. Because I don't know about you, most of the arguments I get in is because everyone's trying to like solve it this way. But in glute doping, we always think finish line up front. So, for example, I 100% agree with your biomechanic positions of the spine, the core, the pelvis, and the hips. In fact, I think I learned something new about it's not super important to chase perfect asymmetry with your hip internal rotation. It's much more about the quality of the mechanics and if you feel good. I agree because we'll never get perfect asymmetry on a bike. We are always slightly biased people. We have right hand dominance. We have a foot we prefer to kick with. We have eye dominance. We know these
Our
things.
bodies are not symmetrical. I
No,
think
they're
that's,
not.
I mean, we've got heart
They're
over here,
not.
we've got different size lung, we've got spleen here,
This
we've got liver here. Our
the
kidneys
right kidney's lower, I think, right? Like it's all over the
all 10
place.
different heights.
Yes, vas deferens are not the same length. Like we all know this. So what I want to share is what our philosophy is, and this I think is really helpful, is that when I say core tuck and glute scoop, here's why I say those two phrases. They are verbal coaching cues that I intentionally try to condition into the riders I work with. And I use the word conditioning, like Pavlov's conditioning, because I've found through my years of doing this, both from personal racing experience and coaching elite level riders from like a motorcycle, basically, that when you're pushing your body and your heart rate's 180 beats per minute, you're trying to keep the power down. It's very difficult to visualize all of your own biomechanics. We know, and I'm sure you know more than I do because you've worked in the military, that like you fall to the level of your training when you're under stress and you're pushing your body. So when we've trained riders to associate ideal body mechanics and position on the bike with a glute doping drill that trains them to feel the internal sense of like this is what a posterior pelvic tilt and a good strong rounded spine is supposed to feel like. Now associate that feeling with the term core tuck and then literally yell at them, say it, core tuck, say it again, core tuck, hit it, core tuck. And I make them say it. I'm ruthless. But I'll tell you something. When you take that level of training and you learn the glute scoop and you put the two coaching cues together in your mind, when you're on the limit doing intervals and some of these pain or symptoms start to come back in, we teach our riders grab onto these little coaching cues and put them in your internal monologue. And you literally speak to yourself. Okay, maintain the core tuck. Okay, that gives me a little bit more glute scoop. Okay, this helps me keep my hip angle open. Okay, now I'm not rocking at the pelvis. Okay, now I can see that my hips stop flaring out and they go back, and I can watch my power stay high and my heart rate go back low. This gives a rider a foothold from a coaching conditioning standpoint to bring the techniques they're trying to unlock directly in front of them on the bike under stress from the work they're doing back here. And that's where, unless anyone starts doing our process, we fight all day about what core tuck and glute scoop means. So, fun fact, you know where we got the core tuck from? I didn't come up with this. 8-year old me. I was a gymnast competitively for 10 years before anything, 4 to 14. At 8 years old, I had a coach named Paul who taught me how to do giants around the high bar, like the flailing around the freaking thing, right? There's nothing more scary in gymnastics than doing giants. It's terrifying. He looked right at me and said, "When I yell tuck, I want you," and he explained pelvis and throw your feet over your head. Because, buddy, when you're upside down and a fall could kill you, you're only going to hear one word. What's the word? Tuck, tuck, tuck. Boy, I was scared out of my mind. But when I flipped it up, and he's like, tuck, I whipped the legs. I did my first giant, and then the next five I did on my own, and then I dismounted perfect. And to this day, it was ingrained in me the value of a coach teaching you to take a painful problem, heal it, give you something to latch onto, and then send you out into the world to go climb that mountain. And so that's where the core tuck and the glute scoop comes from. And every glute doping drill we prescribe someone is much less like how to get stronger at this thing. I teach that every one of our drills is a practice and an exercise you got to go do every day for the next 2 weeks, not to get stronger or to get more mobile. It's actually to build much more proprioceptive awareness in your body and recalibrate that awareness to the standard that I wanted. You know, as much as I do, most people have no good kinesiological sense or whatever. They're just like, I'm standing straight. You're like, no, you're not. You're crooked. And so that's where those coaching cues come from. And the idea that you just sit on your bike and you pedal it and the position your body's in, that's just how you ride the thing. It's completely false too. We teach in glute doping, there are 6 core cycling techniques and 3 specialties. So I define like glute dopers, like if you want to be like what I call a certified cyclist, you need to master all 6 core cycling techniques and all 3 specialties. So what are the core 6? I think I have an old piece of content on this one. If you take your standing versus sitting, your cadence in the highest range or the lowest range, there's a spectrum, and then your hand position on the hoods or on the drops. There's 6 combinations of those if you actually work them out. And all 6 can technically do the same power output. How do I know? I survived the 2022 Redlands Bicycle Classic Stage 1 Highland stage race. Has a 3-minute climb you do 21 times, and it requires 380 watts to get over it every single time, 400 if a team's on the front controlling. So I had to go in training, and my coach gave me VO2 intervals, 6 of them. Each one was 2 minutes long. And as a glute doper, I made it this challenge to do every single 2-minute interval with a completely different technique. Seated, 85 RPM, hands on hoods. Standing, 100 RPM, hands in the drops. Seated, 65 RPM, hands in the drops. Do the permutations and then master the fact that every single one has different breathing, has different, oh God, hip rotation, different spinal control, different speeds to maintain. And it's so quickly exposed what I wasn't good at that I could go back and take the exact same glute doping drills. I've given the same stupid PT clam drill we all do at the bands. We all freaking learn, everyone hates. But I'll tell you, there's nothing better than that dumb little drill sitting there and mastering that you understand the drop off of where your strength and rotation actually matters. Because if they don't know that, they won't be able to understand. I think I'm getting limited in the hips here. And so there's a real value to declaring to someone, hey, you're missing half of this core 6 cycling techniques. And of the 3 specialty, sprinting is not standing on the hoods and pedaling fast or sprint. It is an entirely different technique, sprinting. That's why some people are good at it and they're not. Are UCI legal puppy paws now, like arrow hoods, is a completely different technique. And then full on time trialing with arrow bars is a separate technique. And so I agree, going from generalities to specifics is kind of like the specialty of what when you hire and you get professional help with this, like kind of the goal of it. But I think the best part of this conversation is helping everyone understand there is a standard you should aspire to. It's not an opinion. Like when you're seated, we call it standard riding position. You'll spend almost 90% of your time riding a bike in your life, seated, 85 RPM, hands on the hoods. Like, look at the math. You can go through years of Strava where you spend almost all your time on the bike in that exact position. So fixing that and making it a perfect standard, you own all of it, and then using each different technique in each situation you come upon as then a departure from that standard riding technique. Now you're a real cyclist. Now you can look at a 15-minute climb, you can look at a map, and you can go, all right, I know how to do this as a one-off 15-minute static effort. I know how to do this as 5 3-minute digs of different techniques. I know how to do this. And now you're one of us. You're a rider that can look at a race course map or sign up for a fondo, look at the 60-mile route, look at the topography and go, okay, that's a 5-mile climb at 5%. I know what that feels like. I know I can tackle that. That's a 2-mile climb at 12%. That's going to be tough. And now you can sit down and plan into the ride and know how to use the fact that now I developed a good internal proprioceptive sense. Now I've worked on all of my tools to actually generate power on this bike, my techniques. Now I pick the route I'm going to go do. Now you're a real cyclist. You're operating like how we all love doing this. So that's my spiel on it because this is very important. I don't want anyone to limit themselves. I don't know about you, but my biggest problem is riders asking for help and believing so many self-limiting lies. I spend more of my time breaking off the lies of what people think they're capable of, helping them understand that massive breakthrough in feeling good, feeling healthy, and riding the level you want to is just on the other side of saying yes to expert help. Like, I'm dead serious. You get someone as good as like Robbie telling you, like, you've got this tiny asymmetry that if you follow a program, it's gone. That's relief versus like, I hate that the world is being sold equipment solutions that cost more than actual help that don't get you the answer. The next time someone tells me they don't want to hire real help to feel better on their $5,000 bike, I'm just going to look them right in the face and say, you don't actually like cycling. You like owning nice bikes. Because I pull up on a borrowed 10-year-old road bike on purpose all the time to let people know it is not the bike that you're on. It is the athlete you are and how good you are at getting this thing to the finish line first, whether it's for your own PR or to beat your friends or you're actually a competitive racer. So I'm really excited that we're doing this. And thanks for letting me share what I wanted to say about this, Robbie.
Course, dude. And I think to cap it, I mean, you if you look at awareness of position on the bike, I mean,
Mm.
a lot of that is time riding, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think we know we both
Yeah.
know a lot of racers who do gain an understanding of mechanics and position in their own language, whether or not
Mhm.
they'd use certain terms or not, but they get it, right? I mean,
Mhm.
we don't need to like name names, but I can think of a dozen people that we both know that like probably fit that mold, right? And
Yeah.
potentially some of those folks have stayed relatively injury free, and they've adapted to the mechanics. But I think Mike
Yes.
Tyson said everything's whatever until you get punched in the mouth. Everyone has a plan to get.
Everyone has a plan to get punched in the face.
So that's where things come in when there is a problem.
Yeah.
And what I would say is a key way to understand like, okay, I need some help with this, and I might have some restrictions that need to be dug into so we can get to the bottom of it, find the root
Mhm.
cause. If you can identify specific scenarios or positions on the bike, so scenarios, everything you just talked about, certain
Yeah.
times, certain types of race scenarios.
When I'm climbing, Doc, and I'm seated, I'm doing threshold, and it's about 3 minutes in, my left side back starts to really hurt.
That and when you can't lock in the awareness of what's going on,
Yeah.
is a pretty hallmark sign that you don't have the mechanics for the position you're trying to get into. Because
Bingo.
your brain can't understand it because your body can't attain it. So what
Yes.
might feel like I just can't get in that position. Okay, maybe true, but why?
Why?
That's a pretty good flag to say, okay,
There it is.
I've got an issue here.
Yeah,
I
and
I
yes.
I I normally feel somewhat aware on the bike of where my body's at. If I try to attain this position under this intensity, that goes out of the window and the
Yes.
painting's all smudged up. I can't really even think of where my
Yeah. It's like a
that would
sensory
be
acuity problem.
for
Like,
me a
yeah,
sign that there's a restriction that needs some work. It
I
just as a
100% agree.
general rule of thumb to kind of show people like, okay, when would you know you have a problem? Well, first of all, if you got something that hurts, there's a problem.
Yes. Number
But
one,
second
something's
of all,
actively painful.
how can we understand where that problem is? Where you start to lose awareness
Bingo.
shows that you don't have the mechanics for what you're trying to do, and more effort at that. Now you're just banging into a restriction or an imbalance. That if
Yes.
you put the right things in place, I would say it's unlikely to change. Not that it
Yes.
couldn't change based on sheer luck, but it's unlikely to unless it's identified, it's called out, and it's worked on.
I agree. I think it summed it up perfectly. Do you remember like these I don't know if you I remember working in a hospital one time and like they always had these like treatment algorithm charts when you would like triage someone in the emergency room. You know, if they're dead, go here. If they're almost dead, go here. I think one of the best little triage signs is what you just said. When you have something that's actively painful, like, oh my God, I pedal and my knee feels like it's exploding. I'm like, well, hold on. That's a sign. And those are the easy ones. But a better one, as we just said, when you feel like you're just not, when you're losing the sensory resolution for a certain area, like, hey, it used to feel like a 1080p video, but now it's like pixelated and bad, and I just can't feel it. And the response is, I feel like, oh, my hip's tight, and I keep stretching that sucker and nothing's changing. You're like, that is your point of awareness where at least I'm trying to teach people that's a sign you need to get help, not start trying to change the adjustments. Because by the time you're aware of the symptom of the restriction and the sensory acuity kind of going down, you're already kind of like living in whatever source problem you're unaware of. It's just it's taken a while for the bad smell to kind of make it all the way back to the kitchen. You're like, I thought I took that trash out, you know? So I think that's a really good one because right now, what I feel like most people do is they get to that point and they just apply some type of solution they think is going to help. Like, I'm going to stretch it, I'm just going to start strengthening it. Yet they disregard the fact that they're wasting their time so they don't understand the true source of their problem. So I guess my recommendation is if you have real pain or you start to see those symptoms, get real help, right? Like get the glute dog, get raced with Robbie, like get help. Like right, like what we specialize in, you know, the right person's for you. Like I'm not like the world's best masters crit cyclist with the hip rotation pain problem. Like, dude, you're so much better at that. Right. Like my experience is more in like I'm kind of like a practical racer guy. So most of my programming and recommendations come from the real world, not from the lab. And I think that the more we open up to saying, like, hey, instead of who's right or wrong, instead of going like, hey, I have something to learn. How's that going to help me help everyone? That is a much better position because I don't want only a handful of people to hold all of the information. Then, like, well, the studies say this. It's like that can lead you down some really bad paths. I much prefer the model that we're doing, which is like, no, we actually go out and ride and still train for stuff and really contend with the real world problems. So a lot of times seeing specialists in cycling and stuff like that, we're going to give recommendations. They're like, yeah, but this is going to blend into the lifestyle of cycling because I understand you're also like wearing a helmet and like have to work after this. So maybe some of the traditional recommendations from the broken medical model, they don't apply to you because you're more living an athlete lifestyle. And so I guess what I want to end with is I'm curious, like long term, what's your like goal and hope for like the work you're doing in cycling and the impact you want to have with the riders you're working on? Just so
Yeah.
that like
So
anyone who sees this goes like, dude, Robbie's my guy. Because like
yeah.
I think you're so good for like absolutely so many good people. And it's so cool to come out to Phoenix or wherever we were in Arizona back in February, run into you and just see you in action. I was like, man, I gotta level up. This is pretty cool. So what would you say?
I think the big thing is that cycling is a game of millimeters. You can adjust your bike by millimeters, you can win by millimeters, and you can sit without making any adjustments whatsoever. You can sit in a different position by millimeters.
Mhm.
So when it comes to maybe some of the more general stuff, like get you 80% there. But if
Yeah.
there is a problem that's holding you back, the improvement is likely going to be measured in a handful of degrees in millimeters, and being able to understand the why behind that and clearly understand what needs to be worked on and what doesn't
What doesn't?
make the difference. And that I'll leave it at that.
That's so good. You
I
said
do,
something earlier, which was
I
like you
do
wanted to
gotta
get
I
through
do
the
gotta run, by
independence, so I
the
love
way,
it.
because
I
I got a
like it.
call right at the top of the hour. But
Like it.
I'll send you the video of this, like use it however you want to. But we can also collaborate on like throwing some stuff together. Like I'll send you like a couple like reel formats or something to, see what you think and,
Yeah.
edit things up. And I think this stuff can end up on YouTube as well. And just kind of I don't know, painting a good picture for people. So
I think it's a really powerful thing we're doing, and I'm glad that we're collaborating because most people don't collaborate. And I think it's stupid. Like, dude, collaborate, share, work
100%.
together on this stuff.
Right. Yeah,
Take your
absolutely.
call, bro.
All right,
Proud of you.
dude. Have a good one.
Dude, thank you so much, Robbie. I love you, brother. Thank you for your time. I'm so proud of you, man. Like, look where we're at. Remember, you were like chilling at my house that time, and now we're here. Like,
Yeah,
I'm so
doing.
proud of you. Don't be
All
late.
right.
I'll talk to you
See
later.
you.
Peace.